Okay. Good afternoon, Wednesday, 4:36 p.m. About a decade and a half ago, I lived in Washington Heights, and there was an old lady that lived across the hall in my apartment building. And she used to go, Stalin was a misunderstood man. Ooh, you just don't understand. He was a great man. He was he was strong. That's and you just it reminds me that these people are so indoctrinated that in their old age, that they never really change their ideas. They it never changes. Um, Here she is. I don't know, maybe late 60s, and it's pretty much out there that Stalin was a totalitarian, brutal dictator that probably killed more people than Hitler ever did. But she was so indoctrinated, and there's so much propaganda that it could never be vanquished. Even though she's working in America, obviously, part of her understands that the Soviet Union was a failure. That's not what this video is about. But for 2 decades, my mother has been a fan of Hillary Clinton, and she's indoctrinated into feminism. That is how she grew up in the 70s, and when she was coming of age in New York City, that was their religion, which was all about um, making more opportunities for women. It's not like feminism was new. Feminism certainly was. Mary Wollstonecraft had invented or proposed feminism 200 years before, and certainly there were matriarchal, dominating societies that were violent in throughout the world before monotheism. So it's not like it was novel, but my mother was indoctrinated into this worldview. And with all the bad stuff that has come out about Hillary Clinton recently, I figured maybe she's finally come to the realization that she's a bad woman. And she started saying, no, I don't like Hillary. You misunderstood. She started saying it all week. And I got frustrated yesterday, and I said, things would have been so much easier for me if I didn't have to spend 2 decades trying to convince you that Hillary Clinton is really bad. And if you don't believe me, I'll put a link about her into any post. Hillary Clinton. The link would be xrl.us/Hillary Clinton. I keep tabs on the woman. She is so dangerous. And she turned to me and said, she denied everything she says for the last 2 weeks. It's like, no, I still like Hillary. And it's just like, like, I mean, this is a woman who is into ethnic cleansing. She's a woman who is, well, I'm going to get into the details as to why Hillary Clinton is such a monster. But, so, I'm supposedly a conservative. It's really frustrating to me because I see the Tea Party, and I see basically a lot of the same people that voted for Obama. And now they're coming to, they basically voted for Obama because they have a lot of self-hate, or they hate Jews, or they hate Christians, or they hate, cultural conservatism. And so they voted for Obama, and then they're realizing, oh my God, the cultural conservatives were right, but they still haven't given up their progressive worldview. And I think I need to really explain to people that maybe I'm not a conservative anymore based on this new view of conservatism. Because, you see, without cultural conservatism, you can never have fiscal conservatism. The speakers on MSNBC, for example, like to pretend that there's a severance between the two. But it really can't happen because you have to have everybody jumps on this bandwagon. They want to have less government spending. But how are you going to do that? You see, if you just cut taxes, what you don't understand is the reason that we have government spending isn't because the liberals are evil. It's because the liberals believe rightly that money has to be spent on them. And the reason money has to be spent on certain people is because our society is set up in such a way that it can't function without the government spending. So for there to be fiscal conservatism, you have to have cultural conservatism. And I don't mean that you have to find Jesus, because I'm not Christian. I don't mean that you have to convert to a religion and join a cult or I don't mean that. I mean you have to have a respect for cultural institutions like marriage. Now, here's my point. 50% of children born last year were born to women that didn't have a husband. And their general perception of men is violent and angry, and they wish to be punitive to the male sex. They might adapt and take a conservative fiscal view, but when they have children and they don't have a nuclear family and they don't have a system to take care of the children and they crap on marriage, well, the only thing the government can do is create a system so that these children don't end up in jail because they need these government programs. The only way you can really have fiscal conservatism is by having cultural conservatism. You have to have a domestic partner that stays at home. You have to have a way for the children to be able to relate to both sexes. Otherwise, you're going to have to set up institutions that are paid for by the taxpayer. When 50% of women are giving birth to children out of wedlock, you are not setting up a condition where fiscal conservatism can exist. And until we adapt culturally, we cannot evolve our government. 50% of children born won't really have a father. What people are responsible for such a condition? And you simply need to talk to the women. They all hate men. It's feminism. We are creating this autonomous culture where we have thrown away and we are hostile to marriage. Listen to the gay rights activists. They're attacking marriage. Now, I'm not here to judge what you do in your bedroom. That's not my job. That's not what I'm about. But what I can tell you is a child needs a father. They need the mindset and the view of the male sex. You need to start respecting gender. You need to start respecting difference. The progressives do not respect difference. The progressives want to make everyone the same. And so you cannot be a progressive fiscal conservative. For example, this guy, Daniel Saransky, I think his name is. He's with the JTA, okay? That's like a Jewish organization. If you go to his Facebook profile, it says that he is a libertarian socialist. You can't be both, you see. You can't have less government and also more government. And to have less government, you have to have cultural institutions and cultural trust between the genders, and they have to cooperate in such a way that children can be reinforced. We have to reinforce the behavior so that the government doesn't have to get involved. And what we are doing is we are saying the Tea Party, what the Tea Party is doing is they're saying we want our cake and we want to eat it too. What the Tea Party is saying is that they want it both ways. They want to be able to do whatever they want in their personal life, to have children, and then also they want to cut taxes. And if you actually look at the statistics, you realize that these women are not, the media makes it out to seem like that these women are teenage pregnancies. They're not. There's actually only 7% of these fatherless children are teenage pregnancies. It's very little. What they are selfish feminists. They're 30-something, mid-30s, maybe almost 40-year-old women who decide, you know what, I hate women, but I'm libidinally inclined to want children. And so even though everything I'm about and everything I believe in is hostile to men, I still need that because I don't feel right without children. So they're bringing children into a culture of progressive gender tyranny. And the kids are messed up. And the only way you can save these kids is by spending money. So before we can really, I'm against Obama too. I hate him. He's been very bad. But you have to understand that the Tea Party is great. It's great that you understand that government is bad, but we have to create a cultural condition where the government doesn't need to spend money before you can just cut programs. And it's not just that issue. There are other things about these new pop Tea Party conservatives, fiscal conservatives. They just don't understand. For example, Ron Paul, he's of this mindset. Ron Paul thinks that you can have, he thinks that you can have free trade with Iran without having a military to back up that free trade. Again, he wants it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You can't just have free trade with Iran. Why? Because the last time we had free trade with Iran, the reason Iran had the revolution, which was Islamic but also socialist, was because Iran was in debt to Western companies. And so because they were in debt, this whole Islamic thing was really just a smokescreen so they wouldn't have to pay what they owed. In other words, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to pay you this and then you'll give me that, because people make business deals all the time, but those business deals often end in failure. And it's not just buyer beware, because for somebody to start getting gas in the Caspian Sea, you have to have long-term contracts which can be betrayed. And so as much as I'm excited about these new conservatives, the foundation of their conservatism is very dangerous, both culturally and also their outlook between of capitalism between nations, internationalist views, both at home and also abroad. You cannot have fiscal conservatism without cultural conservatism. We have to reinforce marriage. We have to get these children fathers again. And I'm not detached from this. I'm a father, and my girlfriend won't marry me. Okay? My girlfriend won't marry me. And she won't. She's a feminist because she was raised in this mindset, a very hostile mindset towards men. And in New York State, we've set up such hostility. For example, in welfare, they've set it up so that people that receive welfare, they have to prove that they're looking for a job. So you've got these men biking all around my town, Poughkeepsie, looking for work. But if you have a vagina, the state pays for you to have a car to drive around. Now, we are in a situation in this country where the only industry sector that's actually growing is pink collar jobs, and unemployed women are given cars to drive around. It's discriminatory towards men. That's just only one example. There's Title IX, where men are dropping out of school. I mean, if you have a penis in the United States of America, you are discriminated against financially. Our stimulus bill is actually paying women to train in construction jobs when jobs that women have traditionally done well in are the fastest growing sector in the economy. And we wonder why these women don't want men around. And we wonder why these kids are so messed up. And we wonder why we need all these programs, government programs, to spend on these kids. It's because we have affirmative action to reinforce jobs for women. It's gender tyranny, and it's destructive. And so it's great, because I understand that a lot of the people in the Tea Party are women because, well, they're making money and they don't want to pay their taxes. And I understand that. But you can't just cut taxes, because there is no protection for the people, because there's no inherent culture that reinforces a positive, safe place for children to grow up, and therefore you need all these social programs. It seems like it's going to continue like this, because what's going to happen is there is going to be a conservative president coming in next, and unfortunately he's going to cut all these government programs, but he's going to cut all these government programs without realizing that we really need a cultural revolution. We really need change, not just in government, but change in the mindset of the people.